Welcome to the first video tutorial for week 3 of ARC 380. This week we're going to be modeling a series of 3 pools and 3 pavilions for the Aquatic Center that's going to be built upon the site that you modeled last week. This series of tutorials is going to introduce or go over aspects of the generation and editing of curves, solids, and surfaces within Rhino. As before, it's important to have a proper layer structure. And the first pool that I'm going to cover in this tutorial is a rectangular pool that goes from 3 feet deep at one end to 9 feet deep at the other. It's 100 feet long and 50 feet wide, with a deck built around it that all becomes one solid piece of geometry within Rhino. In order to do that, we want to set up a series of layers. And I'm going to recreate the creation of this pool in just a moment. But beforehand, we want to set up some layers. So we're starting with a main layer called Pool Rectangle. There will be 2 other pool layers or pools that are created. The first version will be a rectangular pool. And beneath this layer, in sublayers, there will be a layer for the pool itself, for the ground that we will trim to the pool once we locate it, and for the contours that we trim. And so if you go ahead and create a layer called Pool, I've given it a turquoise color, Pool Rectangle, and then a sublayer of Pool, turquoise color, and then 2 more sublayers, Trim Ground and Trim Contours. Then we have the collection of layers that will allow us to have this version of the pool adequately integrated into the site without actually losing data that we've had before. And we're going to be working in the pool layer itself, so that's the current layer. And now I'm going to take away the geometry that I have here and recreate it in this tutorial. You'll also notice that I have turned off all of the other layers that are here, so we're starting fresh. And we're going to start by drawing the section of the pool, and I recommend that with most of the geometry, architectural geometry that you create, it's better to start in section and to work in section as long as you can, rather than starting in plan. This is a design bias that I have, but it's also a modeling bias, and maybe you'll see why. So working in a side view, in fact, I don't want the front. I'm going to change this view to the right-hand view. I'm going to start putting in the section of the pool, and to do that I'm going to first place a point at 0, 0, 0 for the origin, just so that I know where I'm starting. And I'm going to draw an outline for the pool using a polyline, not a series of line segments, but a polyline, which is a connected series of line segments. I'm going to start at that origin point. My O-snaps are on, and I have point as one of the things that it's snapping to. And I'm going to give it a distance. I'm going to go up, in this case, 3 feet. So I'll just hit 3, return. Since there are no inches, it defaults to feet. I'll hold Shift for vertical and click. And my first line segment has been 3 feet up. So my next one will be 100 feet, 100, return. To the right, hold Shift so that it's horizontal, click. Now we're going to go down 9 feet, 9, return. Hold Shift, click. I'm going to come back 35 feet for the deep end. And now I'm going to do an angled line where I'm going to use a different input, which will be the at symbol. And that means that I'm going to go from this point to a relative point, which will be 35 feet negative in the x, so minus 35 in the x. You don't have to type x, just at minus 35, comma, 6, which is going to bring us back to the location here, which is 35 feet back toward the origin and 6 feet up toward the origin. So now I can close this polyline by going back to the origin with a 3-foot level on the left and a 9-foot level to the right and a sloping section in the middle. This is a nice single piece of geometry that we can now do some minor editing to. We're going to fillet 2 of the curves. It is a collection of curves, so it might look odd as we do this, but we're going to use a 40-foot radius. You see it already in here. If I needed to change the radius in the command line, I would click here, and I would tell it, perhaps I'll use a 50-foot radius this time. We want a pretty big radius. And we don't need to click on anything else here. It just wants us to select two curves. So I'm going to zoom in and select the 3-foot elevation and the sloping elevation, and you'll notice that a curve is created, filleting those two together. Even though when you click it, it actually highlights the entire polyline, you're still using this command on two separate pieces of that polyline. I'll use the spacebar to repeat the command. I won't change the radius. I'm just going to now select the angle, the sloping and the deep end of the pool. And so now the bottom of the pool has smooth transitions from one end to the other. So I've created the cross section of the pool. It is on the right-hand face. I actually think, now that I look at it, just for my own purposes, I might want to have it on the front face. So I'm going to go to the top view, and I'm going to select the geometry in the top view, and I'm going to use the rotate command from the origin to the endpoint, and I'll hold shift, and I'll turn it 90 degrees, essentially moving it to the front view. Because that's the way that I want to work with it when I'm here in perspective. So now I have a good section of the pool. Right away, I'm going to create a solid from that, and then I'm going to use a series of editing tools to round off other portions of it and to create the deck of the pool. This is, remember, is going to be a simple 50 by 100 foot rectangular pool. So I'm going to click on this cross section, which is fully closed, and I'm going to create a solid, and I'm going to extrude a planar curve straight. And in this case, the command line shows that I have both sides equals yes, and you could turn this off and say both sides equals no to make it an extrusion in one direction. I'm going to go back to that and say both sides equals yes. And I'm going to give it a total distance, I'm going to give it an extrusion distance of 25 feet, meaning it goes 25 feet in both directions. It's already been set here, 25, from when I did this before. You might have to type in 25, as I'll do now. And there we have this new piece of geometry, which Rhino considers to be a solid. It is it can be edited differently than a series of surfaces can. But kind of like a polyline, it is a collection of discrete surfaces that it is calling a solid. So what we're going to do next with this solid is that we are going to take it and start to fillet a series of edges around this, and we're going to do it in a certain order. We're first going to fillet the four corners in plan, and then we're going to fillet the bottom edges of the pool. So to do this, I will go to the solid fillet edge tool, and I will fillet edges, and I'm going to give it a radius for the fillet. And in this case, I'm going to start with a fillet of 1 foot, and I'm going to select a series of edges. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to start with the vertical edges, hit return, return, and I've filleted this first corner. I'm going to hit either return or spacebar to start the command again. Select a new edge, return, return. I've just filleted that edge. I'm going to go to this corner. And I'm going to go finally to the back corner. I might swing the whole thing around. And so that in plan, if we zoom in here, you can see that I've now put a 1 foot radius fillet in each of the corners of the rectangular pool. Next, what I'm going to do is make a series of fillets of the entire bottom edge around the pool. And the important thing here is to do the first set of fillets before we do the second set, because one set is going to run around the other. And so we just want to do these in a particular order. It wouldn't work as well, or in fact, it might not work at all to do them the other way. So I'm going to continue the fillet command just by hitting the space bar. I'm going to change the radius down from 1 foot to 8 inches, and I can type 8 inches. And you'll notice that what it says in the command line is 0.666667 feet, but that's equivalent to 8 inches. And we are going to chain edges, right? So continuity equals tangency. That's important because then what I can do is I can select one piece of the edge, and look what happens. It then selects the entire edge that is contiguous with that, and I can hit return and hit return again, and it will fillet all of the bottom edges and in fact turn the corners very cleanly. If we had selected 12 inches for this bottom fillet, Rhino might have run into a bit of a logical problem when it came to a 0 point here. So it's helpful that the corner radius that we did first was 12 inches and the bottom radius is 8 inches. So now they work very nicely, and we have a nicely smoothed pool in its bottom and corner edges. The next thing that we're going to do is create the deck around the edge of the pool. We will do that at the beginning of the next video, since this one is going on a bit long, so stay tuned.